You held an event for the Vice President last night at your house here in Los Angeles. How'd it go?
Amazing. You know, the idea was to have a non-political function and let some of our friends in LA who are not necessarily supporters of the president get a look at the man who's one breath away, just the person. What kind of guy is he? How does he think? And I have to tell you, he rocked the room. He crushed it.
What did he say?
You know, he's an amazing individual because when you think of the position, it's so difficult, right? He really is one step away from the presidency, yet he has to be the ultimate team player. So he was sharing his fondness and his appreciation for the president's bold messages. But we talked about China, we talked about trade, we talked about NAFTA, we talked about Dreamers, we talked about immigration, we talked about health care, and that sometimes the messenger may get muddled, especially on both coasts, but the message is so clear. And he went through with this group the thinking process of the president on those difficult issues and what's happening in Korea, for instance. I mean, you know, Los Angeles is a place where when you talk about Kim, they think it's Kardashian. they're not thinking of Kim Jong-un. But just that singular event, if it were any other president, would have stopped the presses. It would have just been an amazing event for us to think that perhaps there is going to be peace in that part of the world. So it was good.
What specifically did he say about North Korea?
That we have to go slowly, that, you know, we've learned over time that these signals and signs are sometimes complicated to interpret. But his father had been a soldier in the Korean War in the early 50s, reminded us that we lost over 50,000 people in that war, and that this was an unbelievable major step forward.
Does the vice president think, or did he say, as to whether he believes the signals that Kim is sending are genuine, or are these head fakes?
He didn't say either. He just said that the progress of that singular act results in major part from the personal relationships that President Trump has created with both President Xi and the dialogue between Kim Jong-un, which we all were skeptical at the beginning. With Rocket Man and Mine is Bigger Than Yours, it seemed a little harsh at first. And that the aftermath of this is at least now we have a venue, we have a forum, we have hope. But he didn't really establish whether this was something that was substantive immediately or something that might be problematic. He just said, keep your eye on it.
I want to shift our conversation to the Middle East. Tom, you have had some concerns about U.S. policy in the Middle East, notwithstanding broad support for the change in direction since the shift to the Trump administration from the Obama administration. Are those concerns easing?
Well, no, they're not easy because, as you know, I'm a Lebanese Catholic, so my DNA is saturated in thousands of years of tribal conflict. So I have great admiration for what's happening in the Middle East. Mohammed bin Zayed in Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Tamim in Qatar, Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, what he's done, this realignment with Israel, a hope of some scent of peace perhaps between Israel and Palestine, and are moving the embassy. But it's amazingly complicated.
Does it make sense to you that Mike Pompeo, now that he's Secretary of State, is in Riyadh telling the Saudis to end the blockade of Qatar when it was the United States, possibly even the president himself, who greenlighted, or at least okayed the blockade in the first place?
Look, these messages are all very difficult to interpret because you have a religious rift. You have Sunnis and Shias and Alawites and Jews. You have geographical rift. You have the cessation of the oil appetite. So I think the messages are appropriate at different times. But this was a regional conflict, and it should be left to the regions to resolve. They know how to resolve it amongst themselves. So I'm a believer that with American support, the regional issue will drift away, that with the leadership of these new young Arab leaders, they'll find an answer to the 200 million youth that are spread from Egypt to Iran under 25 who don't have jobs. That's really the issue. If you want to stop terrorism, you need to give them hope.
How is it, Tom, that you're able to maintain such good relations with the people on both sides of this conflict? The Saudis and the Emiratis on the one side, and the Qataris on the other. It's remarkable.
Well, it's because I don't have much grain matter. I only have artificial intelligence, so it doesn't get in the way of smart thinking. I just have great respect for all of them. I've just been a trader in the desert with all of them, so I understand their cultures, and they all come from the same families. This will be resolved, but we have to allow them to resolve it in their own way.
Are you still working with the Al Thanis in Qatar?
Well, they're friends. I work with all of them. They're all friends of mine. The Saudis, the Qataris, the Emiratis, they're all friends.
You have done some work with the PIF, the Public Investment Fund in Saudi Arabia, investing in Accor, the real estate.
Yes, they're phenomenal.
So where specifically can Colony NorthStar work, or what specifically can Colony NorthStar do to help the PIF even more in its efforts to do more deals and make more investments in the West, let's call it?
Well, look, my belief, you have Mohammed bin Salman, who's revolutionized the kingdom. And the help that he needs is not really money. It's expertise and belief. So as he's moving that culture slowly and elegantly further to the West, he needs Western expertise in entertainment, in infrastructure, in solar. He's building a new $500 billion city. He needs us to weigh in by investing there as much as PIF is investing in major companies everywhere. So I think what we can do to aid that process is to weigh in by believing in that system and being an investor in the region. And hospitality, entertainment, resorts, things that were inconceivable in Saudi Arabia are starting to blossom.
Where do you, as the executive chairman of Colony NorthStar, see the best opportunities to invest right now?
Look, I think emerging markets are an amazing opportunity because growth is what drives all of the macro investing environment. So
that's where the growth is.
That's where the growth is. And as long as the U.S. has a long runway, which it appears to me that it is, I don't see too many black swans. The tax bill, corporate earnings, what's in front of us, and the liquidity of the stock markets is very efficient. So for all of us investing in developed markets, you're just buying the market. It's the macro one. So I think where you have an edge is to move to these markets where it's more difficult. You have a currency issue, you have a political issue, you have a legal issue, but you have tremendous growth.
Given your close relationship with the president, Tom, I would be remiss in not asking you at least one question about him. The president has said on a number of occasions that people keep telling him that he needs to fire either the Attorney General Sessions, Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein, Special Counsel Bob Mueller. Are you one of those people?
No, I'm not. But remember that whenever I give the president advice, he reminds me that if he would have listened to me, he'd still be on The Apprentice. But no, that's the wrong advice. Look, Bob Mueller is the best pro you could ever find to do that particular job. Princeton, Marine Corps, FBI, distinguished. He's solid. He's rock solid. He's just doing the job that he was given. So allow him to do the job, get this over with. The president knows that he was not culpable of any wrongdoing with regard to Russia or any of these surrounding events. So it's frustrating, of course, to have so much focus constantly paid on it. But everybody's just doing their job. So my opinion is let it go forward. Just get on with it. You've got the best team in front of you to do it, and it'll be over.
Who has his ear on this then? Who is it who is inciting him to say these things and who seems to at least advance in him the idea that it should be getting under his skin, that he has to do something about it?
Look, it's politics, and I can assure you nothing gets under his skin. He is, whatever people think about him politically, this man is one of the strongest human beings I've ever seen. So he's impervious to it. It's everything around him. And everybody's been loyal. Sessions is loyal. Kelly is loyal. They're all doing the best job they can. It's a complicated matrix of relationships around him. And at the end of the day, who's the chief of staff? The president. The president is the one who dictates his own policy, and that's the bottom line.
Tom, thank you.